All right, Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to News Nation. Are you on the left or the right, but you're desperate for things to sound reasonable again? If so, welcome. As I was saying, we have two crises to cover. First, we cover one abroad, and then a crisis of our own making at home, all right? Now, Jamaica is preparing for what's being called the strongest storm of the year, Hurricane Melissa, now a Cat 5 barreling towards the island. Now, what are they predicting? Well, remember, we're dealing with an island about 700 miles off the coast of Florida, right? About half the size of New Jersey. What do we know about it? It does not absorb water well. There's been a lot of deforestation. A lot of the construction is not up to storm quality, let alone hurricane quality. And you have almost 3 million people in the path of this thing as it goes through Jamaica. So they're predicting the flooding, the landslides, widespread damage. And this could be the worst thing they've had since 1851. Now, this is the only time in any journalist's life where they are desperate to be wrong. I hope something happens and this isn't what it's supposed to be, what it could be. It's great to be wrong in these situations, but what if you're not? There's only so much you can do to prepare. And I have an interesting perspective from someone who's been tracking it as an aspiring meteorologist, but they are also living in the path of it. Danielle Henry is known as Weather Girl Danny on social media, and she joins us from Montego Bay. Now, that is the northwest end of Jamaica, and they are looking to get wet and dirty there from this storm. Danny, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate having you on the show. How are you and your family right now? How are you doing in terms of preparation?
Hi, thank you so much for having me firstly. And we're actually doing quite okay. There's definitely some anxiety with this approaching hurricane, but we have prepared and we're essentially ready to ride out the worst of it.
How do you feel about the preparations of the government, how word has gone out, how many people were able to get somewhere else? Like, what do you know about the preparations on the larger scale, and how do you feel about them?
Well, actually, I feel like there's been a lot that's been done over the past several days, especially with given the constant updates to the public via social media, which most of us use on a daily basis. So I feel like preparations have been going really well. However, on a, looking more in terms of the people here, I feel like there's not been a lot of persons taking it very seriously as they should. But as time has gone by, especially with Melissa actually becoming a Category 5 hurricane, there's a bit more seriousness, and I really do hope that more people are taking the necessary precautions.
Where is it now in terms of what kind of storm effects you're feeling?
Well, actually, on the northwest coast, it's pretty calm. It's surprisingly calm, but I mean, Melissa's moving very slowly, so that is a huge contributing factor. We were getting some light rain earlier. It wasn't anything too crazy. And now that has stopped and it's just been rather still outside. But as the night goes on, I'm definitely expecting that things will be going down here for sure.
Was the front side of the storm ever a problem? Because, it's looking like it's coming on top of you just about now.
Yeah, definitely. And with the unprecedented intensification of it reaching those winds of 175 miles per hour, the sustained winds, I mean, it looks as though it will be a major issue, especially for the central and western half of the country. So I'm expecting a lot of damage from it for sure. So that's the unfortunate case with the intensification of it. And it's not letting down at all, it seems.
What period is supposed to be the most perilous in terms of what you have to watch out for? When is your time window that you're going to be paying attention to?
Well, definitely from very early in the morning. So maybe around 1 going to 2 a.m. and pretty much throughout the entire day tomorrow. Because it'll slowly pick up acceleration. However, it is going to be around long enough to unleash those deadly impacts. So I really think that throughout tomorrow morning, go into the afternoon is going to be the worst of it here on the northwest coast for sure.
Well, what I'll do is I'm at fire school tomorrow night, unless there's like something terrible that happens and I have to come to where you are. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But I'll check with you in the afternoon and I'll try to get an update from you, and you can let me know what's going on, and we'll stay in touch with you. And I hope you and the family and your community are well. And look, I'm seeing the same data that you are. I hope we're both wrong, and I hope that this winds up being an event that is survivable without major distress. But, you know, you see the same storm path I do, so stay safe and stay in touch as long as you can.
All right, thank you. I definitely will, and thank you so much for having me once more.
All right, Weather Danny, we'll be back to you. All right, so we go from what you can't control, right? That is a natural disaster that's coming towards them. Now, here at home, it was completely controllable. It's a man-made disaster. The shutdown is entering its 5th week. 1 million federal workers are getting checks for $0.00. Everything's going to get worse that they're involved in as they're forced to not work or how they work and all the pressure that they're under now because of the financial stress that there was no need for. And no, they don't qualify for unemployment. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, they're collecting unemployment, that's BS, okay? And even if they get back pay, it's not going to be for weeks. And many of these people were living check to check. So what does that tell you? How are they going to feed themselves? I'll tell you how they won't feed themselves. SNAP and WIC, what we used to call food stamps, because it runs out, the funding for that, on November 1st. How many people you think need that? You know, this is one of the great American blind spots, right? Because when you look around, so many of us are so fat, you figure that one problem we don't have here is food, right? Did you know that close to 50 million Americans need help to escape hunger? How shameful is that? The only thing that's more shameful than that need in the richest country in the world is that these people can't make enough to support themselves and not be food sensitive, which is the PC way of saying in hunger. The only thing that may be worse than that, the reality, is this surreality of political division. This is all being done just for advantage. Nothing's going to change. Even though the Democrats are fighting the right fight, as I'll explain in a second when it comes to health care, they're not going to get it changed to open up the government. It's not going to happen any more than the Republicans, the MAGA guys, got funding for the wall in the first, which had been the longest shutdown until maybe this one. We'll see what happens. They didn't get the funding from the wall out of that. This is just a stunt. But everybody is paying for this stunt. The situation is so dire that the private sector has had to step up. DoorDash is offering 1 million free meals for people on food stamps when their SNAP benefits disappear. You know, I mean, look, it's nice of them to do it. Corporations should step up in this society. They make so much money. But, you know, this is not a real fix. And if you think the shutdown doesn't matter because you're not a federal employee or you're fortunate enough to not be in poverty, well, hold on, because you're about to feel the bite in a record way, or at least a record number of Americans are. Because on November 1st, it's not just SNAP that runs out. That's when ACA open enrollment starts. 22 million are going to see major premium hikes because of exactly what started this shutdown for Democrats, the subsidies. MAGA is great at dumping on Obamacare, but they stink at doing anything better to replace it. They haven't fixed what was wrong with it because they want to repeal and replace, right? Remember 70-something times they tried that? So they've never improved it. They've never worked with Democrats to fix what needed to be fixed with the ACA, just like every other big program the government ever started. They take tweaks, right? You need to switch and fix. They don't want to do it. So, as a result, MAGA folk, people who voted for better, are about to get worse, and they're going to pay as much or more than their perceived opponents. Because the real enemy here is not right and left, it's green. It's corporate greed. And that's what has the influence over these lawmakers, which would put them in a position where they'd rather have you pay a price than for them to stop getting paid by those donors. That's what this is about. Okay? In Kentucky, here's some examples. You're a 60-year-old couple making 85 grand, okay? $23,000 increase in their premiums. Illinois, same couple, $23,000. New Jersey, Republicans want to win it, right? Yeah, good luck. Additional $20,000. Now, I'm going to help you with a couple of things that are out there that are just not true about this situation. But there's still many, many, many of you who are like, I don't use the ACA. I get it through my employer. Okay, that's how most Americans do. You don't think our premiums are going up because of the same market pressures and the same problems and the same largesse by these companies? You're wrong. We're all going to see increases, okay? These guys are just like the canary in the coal mine because the subsidies are being screwed with, so we're going to see the economics play out sooner. So let's stick to the facts, okay? Not these farcical ideas that politicians are using to distract you. Oh, the Democrats are saying they want to fix the subsidies. They're the ones who set the expiration date. They set the date for these to expire next year. So I don't know why they want to deal with it now. And they're the ones who wanted them to end. That is a specious argument. Another way of saying BS. Anyone who says that is playing gotcha and playing you for a fool. Anybody who is in this business of information must do a little Google search and see the only reason the subsidies are temporary is because they had to be made temporary in order to get them through the little budgeting loophole of reconciliation that the Democrats used. They had to be limited in duration. The Democrats always wanted them to be permanent. The Republicans didn't want these at all and didn't want them to be permanent, even though their own people need them. Democrats have tried to make them permanent, and MAGA has resisted. And now you will see the reality. MAGA's own people in places that voted for them, and voted for them the most, are going to see some of the biggest hikes. I know it seems like this is about right versus left, and this is about giving free care to illegals. I'll deal with that in a second because it's just a straight up lie. But it's not about right and left. It's about right and wrong and who this government is designed to serve. And right now, it serves the few, and it hurts the many. On every level, those who need help to get health care, to get food, to get paid as federal workers, the MAGA folk are going to suffer right along with the left. We are all in it together. And what pisses me off is that the people who are aggrieved, who are so angry, you share so much in terms of why you're angry and who is to blame and what needs to change. But you have been kept from each other just because of these stupid parties and what works for them. I'm telling you, the reality of this division is not what it seems like on social media and everywhere in the media. Why? Because the division is manufactured for advantage. Americans don't hate each other the way you see on the news. Democratic states, Maryland, Hawaii, Virginia, they're all affected by this. Republican states, West Virginia, Alaska, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah. They're all states that have high percentages of populations working for the federal government. And that means they have high population of people who are hurting. And these lawmakers know it. Alabama Republican senators, Britton Tuberville. You got 40,000 federal workers. You've seen a 200% increase in your people needing the ACA and enrolling in it. So you can say this is all about funding illegals, but that's BS. That's BS. And you're hurting your own people. Okay? And let me tell you what you're both proof of. I'll tell you what should be illegal, not people. Shutdowns should be illegal. And I'm talking to you in Utah, Republican senators, Mike Lee, John Curtis. You got 34,000 federal workers who are taking a beating right now because of you. A 100% increase in ACA enrollment. Your own people need these subsidies. Senator Lee can't run his mouth enough on Twitter, right? He gets involved in all these controversies. Run your mouth now. Get yourself a better deal. Why don't you talk to other senators instead of talking on social media and make a deal before you bankrupt more of your constituents? Maryland, same deal. Democratic Senator Van Hollen, 145,000 federal workers in your state. And you keep voting no on the CR. Why? Because you're strong. You're standing up to Trump. Who's paying for that? Who's paying for this show? Pretend it's a guy in El Salvador and put in your best effort to get a better deal instead of just celebrating your inaction. Democrats should be more like their colleague who's doing the right thing. a real Democrat, Senator Fetterman. He's obviously aware that his duty is not to some political optics of the far fringe of his party or to social media. It's to the 66,000 federal workers. It's to the 500,000 people he has on the ACA. He hasn't gone MAGA. He just knows that causing his own people pain is no way to fix health care. This isn't going to end with them getting something on the subsidies. That's why he's voting for the Republican CR. Not because he likes it, not because he likes CRs, but because that is better than just allowing the problem to punish his constituents. Now, look, I know that people on the right are telling you that this health care thing is about keeping Democrats from giving free health care to illegals. I know. Why? Because they don't want to deal with the truth. They don't want to deal with the subsidies. They don't want you to realize this is about you. It's better for it to be about them, right? Now, look, here are the facts. Federal law doesn't allow undocumented immigrants to be eligible for Medicaid dollars, period. So then how could they get any? Two ways. One, states playing funny money and finding ways to get reimbursed for it within the legitimate reimbursement structure. That happens. That happens. The second way is that there is a reimbursement structure. Why? Because the truth is that before Trump, Republicans and Democrats agreed that states should be reimbursed for giving emergency care to anyone, legally or not legally, in the country, because they're still human beings, damn it. But now that there's this jihad against undocumented immigrants, they want you to think that this is all about the Democrats funneling them money as part of the great replacement plan. What they don't tell you is that you know who's going to get swept up in this undocumented or illegals, you want to say? People with legitimate temporary protected status. People who the government has said can be here right now. Like the dreamers. Like migrants who survived sex trafficking on their way here. Oh, you didn't know it was those people, right? Oh, no, those people are okay. No, they're not. No, not to the right. No, they're not. That's why the right wants to reduce, not repeal. Because even they know that their posturing and their shame campaign is bogus. They know how wrong this is. And they know they are being loud about less than 1% of Medicaid funding. 1%. That's the part that goes to undocumented for reimbursement. And that's why they're trying to get you to think about that and not the ACA subsidies for tens of millions of American citizens. That's what they want to cancel. That's what it's really about. I've told you, you've heard me say, if I'm the Democrats, I give the Republicans the reimbursement issue. Here, you decide and you own what states get reimbursed to give emergency care to people. Here, go ahead. You decide the percentage and then you own it when the states start to complain because they don't have the money. You own it. We want to fight about the subsidies for American citizens. That's what I would do if I were they. They're not doing that. But on Friday, they may have a change of heart because we may have one for the history books. Members of all military branches are going to miss a paycheck due to the government shutdown. Unbelievable. Oh, no, it's not true. Trump moved around money and he got some anonymous donor to pay the troops, this guy Mellon. First of all, it's not enough, and I can't believe they're taking that money and that there's no vetting of whom, what is Mellon involved in and what are these other things. I can't believe it. So, yes, Trump used $8 billion from one Pentagon account to pay $6.5 billion to the troops, but that leaves $1.5 billion left over. It's not enough to pay the troops. The $130 million he got is nothing. It's not enough to cover the shortfall. I'm not saying it wasn't nice of the guy to give it, although I don't know why he gave it. I don't know anything about him or what he's involved in. I think it's embarrassing that America would ever take that kind of money. But the point is, people are getting hurt, and it's all for political advantage. There is no high ground. There is nothing that's going to be solved in this. People are just going to pay. The question is, when will you demand better? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the discussions about what can be done with this. And as NewsNation does, and only NewsNation does, I'm going to talk about the shutdown with politicians, but I'm going to have right and left together and see if we can be reasonable. Next. All right, let's talk to left and right and see how reasonable we can be. Now, both people I'm about to bring in are in favor of the subsidies. Why? Because they know their constituencies. That's why. You got member of Congress, Republican, New York, Mike Lawler, okay? Member of Congress, Democrat, Pennsylvania, Madeleine Dean. It's good to have you both. Thank you for joining me. Madeleine, let me just start with a little bit of news here. The largest workers' union on the federal level is calling on you guys to sign a clean CR. What do you make of their request?
Well, Chris, it's good to be with you, and good to be with you, Mike, also. And I'm coming to you from Haddon Heights, New Jersey, where I just watched my 8th grade granddaughter sworn into the National Junior Honor Society. And you know what they prize? Leadership, citizenship. I know, oh, Chris, it was inspirational. But it also really reflects on the job that Mike and I have, that we have a calling for citizenship, for service, for leadership. So that's why I'm happy to be on with you, Mike. I think that was AFG. Are you talking about AFG? I was speaking to my local AFG leader last week and the national leader last week as well. I'm meeting with some of the federal employees later this week. I get why they would be calling for that. They want their workers working and actually being paid for the work they're doing. But I'm going to stand by and say the only thing you got wrong in that last segment was Democrats are standing firm for the health care, for the health and well-being of our constituents across this country, and we can come to an agreement. I know Mike Lawler supports a continuation of the subsidies, so that's the only part you got wrong in that last segment. We can stand by our constituents and their health care and their well-being.
Well, with all due respect, and I congratulate your family on the much-deserved award, and I'm glad that you didn't get beaten up for wearing that jacket in there if you had that on when you were around
I didn't wear it in there.
folk.
No. I did not do that in there. I wore this tonight to say Democrats are going to be in Washington this week, so I hope to meet Mike Lawler on the floor to move that legislation he's talking about.
Brother Lawler, the idea that, you know, in the first shutdown of the first administration, Trump administration, it was about money for the wall. Everybody knew you weren't going to get money for the wall. What you were going to do is negotiate some kind of period of negotiation for the CR. Isn't that the only possibility right now, that at some point it'll start in the Senate but eventually have to be echoed in the House? That, fine, we'll talk about it, we'll figure out what we can do, but it's going to be a clean CR with no musts attached, right?
Well, first, congratulations to Madeleine and PJ. I know Madeleine very well, and that's always exciting when it comes to your grandchildren. My daughter's first birthday is tomorrow, so the family moments are always important. But look, I personally have always believed that you don't shut the government down, regardless of who's doing it or for what reason. When Republicans tried to do it during the Biden administration over Joe Biden's open border policies, I opposed it, and I pushed back and pushed for a clean CR to be put on the floor. And remember, Kevin McCarthy ultimately lost his job in part for putting a clean CR on the floor. In 2019, when we had the shutdown, to your point, Chris, Republicans did not get the funding for the border wall, and in fact, President Trump ultimately made the agreement to pass the clean CR because our federal workers were being impacted by it and they weren't getting paid. Air traffic controllers not showing up to work because they were having to choose between putting food on the table or showing up to their job and not getting paid. It's unacceptable. I have signed on to legislation to extend the ACA subsidy by a year. I am more than happy to negotiate on that. But it is that's a short-term solution to a longer-term problem. When you look at healthcare premiums since 2010, the Obamacare premiums have risen by 60% since 2010. So the objective should be, how do we fix this, Republicans and Democrats working together to actually address the cost of health care in this country, which has skyrocketed. It has not gotten less. When you have health insurance companies like United Healthcare owning primary care providers, there's a problem. That shouldn't be. And so that's something that we should work to address. So there's a
Yeah,
lot
go
that
ahead,
can
Madeleine,
be done here,
last
but you open the government up and you pass the clean CR that's been sitting in the Senate for over a month, Chris.
Madeleine, you get the last
Well,
word.
actually,
What's up?
Chris, think about it, though. I was here in 2019. That's when I was sworn in. That was Trump's shutdown, 35 days. It was a divided government. This is not the same. This is a shutdown based on the Republicans going home. Mike, I would ask you to implore the Speaker to bring us back. 5 weeks in a row now, the Speaker has said all his Republican colleagues stay home. Why aren't we here? Why aren't we in D.C. negotiating that very thing? You know that that's what we should be doing.
Madeleine, you know I love you, but you had an opportunity a month ago to vote to keep the government open and funded, and you voted no. The bill passed the House well over a month ago. It's been sitting in the Senate. It's been sitting in the Senate. Your two U.S. senators from Pennsylvania, by the way, John Fetterman and Dave McCormick, agree. They have both voted yes 12 times to keep the government open and funded. So, Madeleine, you can say that we should be back in Washington, and I'll be there Wednesday. I'll be there Wednesday, so I'm happy to come see you on Wednesday.
I have an idea.
But I have signed on to a bill.
Meet me on the floor.
I have signed on to a bill to extend the ACA
Chris, would you allow me to
subsidies. You should join us. You should join us on that bill.
Mike, you filibusterer. You're filibustering. Now I got to give Madeleine another chance to end the segment. Go ahead.
I have to tell you, Chris, I don't know if you know this, Mike Lawler does a tremendous Donald Trump impersonation. And when he comes onto the floor, he comes right up to me and says, nasty, nasty woman. I am nasty. I'm nasty for the truth. You guys shut this thing down. And my constituents don't care who shut it down. They want it reopened. They call upon the Speaker to bring you guys back. And I'll meet you on the floor, Mike. Let's go by unanimous consent on the bill to get at least a year's extension on ACA. Let's do it.
Hey, listen, I asked Hakeem Jeffries to sign on to it 2 weeks ago, and he said no. So go get Jeffries to sign on to it, and I'll talk to the Speaker.
He's not going to sign on right now. He's not going to sign on because it looks like a loss.
Let's do it together.
Do your impersonation for
He's not going to impersonate Trump here right now. He knows it comes with too big a price tag. I'll tell you what, though.
I've done it publicly. Don't worry.
Yeah. I have to go to break, but I'll tell you what.
Democrats
this is what will start.
are in town ready to solve these problems for the American people.
Yeah, I got it, but it's the Democrats in the Senate.
People are going to lose their health care in your district, Mike.
I know.
You know that.
I know, Madeleine. Everybody's feeling the pain.
The Senate should
it's unbelievable.
Everybody's feeling the pain.
We're not in the Senate.
Everybody's feeling the pain.
We're not in the Senate.
But I know. But the Democrats in the Senate.
Given the opportunity. That's the problem.
The Democrats in the Senate hold the power right now, but the House is going to have to create a fix here. There's no question. When you come back, the unanimous consent that should start everything is unanimous consent on no more shutdowns. They should be made illegal. And the American people will go, hooray!
Chris, I'm signed on to legislation to do just that.
All right, I got to go.
We should never have a shutdown.
All right, I got to go. I'm getting yelled at. Congratulations to your family, Madeleine.
Chris.
Congratulations to your little girl, Mike Lawler.
Happy birthday.
Both of you. Enjoy your families.
Thank you.
It's all that matters. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So at our town hall a couple weeks ago, Stephen A. Smith had a moment. He was pissed off. Everybody was talking about the shutdown, but they weren't remembering who's paying the price of the shutdown. He took a break. It was well executed, and it was well taken. So what does he think of the state of play that he is hearing? What are they missing, the people in power, of how Mr. and Mrs. America are seeing all of this? And he's been getting into a lot of interesting back and forths with people in power. Sports gambling. He said, I think I know what this is about. The head of the FBI did not agree. Next.
A man has to work on DoorDash when he's really an air traffic controller, that we applauded, and we're up here talking about how much some money is going to cost, and the only person that don't have a check coming is him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
Stephen A. Smith walking off the set because he was frustrated with the disconnect between the people who were feeling the pain and the people who were playing the game, right? Now, it's only gotten worse. And my brother joins me right now, Stephen A. Smith. Always good to see you, big man. Thank you for being with me. Ooh, that is a quality shirt that you have on. But I can't say I'm surprised. SNAP and WIC, okay, what we used to call food stamps, right? 50 million Americans. The funding's going to be cut. I don't even think most Americans know how many people need help to just get food on the table. Do you believe that the disconnect between the Jack Chris's, that father we met that night, and the people who are going to be feeling this pain, do you think the politicians are getting the message that they think they're gaining advantage in this, but they're actually losing their own base?
They're absolutely losing their own base, but they don't care at the moment, because if you're on the left, you're too preoccupied with hating Trump, and if you're on the right, you're too preoccupied with fawning over him to ensure that you remain in power, and what gets lost in the shuffle is the American people. You are talking to a black man that was once on food stamps, that knows what welfare is, that knows what government cheese tastes like, that knows what it's like to worry about having a roof over your head, clothes on your back, and food on your table. That's why I always say I ain't giving up my money now, because I worked diligently for years to make sure my primary motivation in life is to never to return to the state of affairs that I grew up with, that my mother worked her tail off for decades to ensure that I had a better life and made sacrifices beyond comprehension. But these politicians are not like that, and they prove it to you, and they prove it to you with their policies. For example, you know, you could talk about the left or the right. Last time I checked, all of them are still getting paid. All of them still have their health care. None of them have been furloughed or fired. Why haven't you all? You can raise your hand and volunteer and say that you're not accepting any money, but the reality is you have a choice. While there are millions of Americans you're not giving a choice to, because you all on Capitol Hill had all of this time to negotiate, whether it's a continual resolution, whether it's the ACA subsidies, or whatever you want to talk about. You've had ample time to address these issues to make sure that the American people were prioritized, and you didn't do it. Now, it's one thing to sit up there and disagree about the border. It's one thing to disagree about safety in the streets. It's one thing to disagree about the economy. But as long as people are out there with their jobs and still working, you might have somewhat of an excuse for throwing something to the back burner for a day or a month or a couple of months or 6 months or whatever. They had this CR issue back in March. Chuck Schumer lost tremendous support because he wouldn't support a government shutdown back then. Here we are, you had 6 months to get this resolved and you haven't done it. It's egregious. And all of them are to blame on both sides, because none of them, and I'm not talking about individuals like the representatives that you had. I'm not speaking to individuals not giving a damn about the American people. I'm saying the collective body that is our federal government should be purged. They all should go, because they all are sickening right now. They all are.
And yet, what do we know? In the midterms, the incumbency retention percentage is above 95%. Because of how the system is actually rigged, between money and incumbency effect and gerrymandering, it's hard to get anybody out, man.
Yeah, well, even though the president is obviously a culprit in it all, it still doesn't negate the fact that when he says the system is rigged, this is the kind of fodder that makes you believe him. Because when you see this kind of stuff taking place, and then you hear about issues like redistricting and gerrymandering and all of this stuff, you say, okay, this is what they're trying to do. It's politicians picking for the voters instead of the voters picking politicians, right? Well, if that's a roundabout way of saying it or showcasing that the system is rigged, they're not going to go into specificity when it comes to what Trump is talking about, knowing that he's just as big of a culprit as anybody else. They're going to look at his overall branding of the political apparatus that we're under, and they're going to remember him using the words rigged, and 77 million people at least did say, and probably would say again, he's absolutely right. And then we get nowhere. Same old stuff, different day.
Especially when this ends, unless there's somebody who's ambitious enough to put out a unanimous consent motion that there are no more shutdowns, that they make them illegal. I mean, that's something that would actually spark a little bit of hope among the majority of American people. But it'll be a CR, but nothing will be done. So all this pain will be for nothing, because nothing will change. Nothing will change. The subsidies won't change. But the reimbursements won't change. None of it will change.
That's fine, but I would ask you to trust the resolve of the American people. And what I mean by that is that if you have a job, just like the air traffic controller that stood up at the microphone during our town hall weeks ago, right? You got a job to go to. Yes, it's painstaking. Yes, it's a headache. But you know what? America has incredible intestinal fortitude, and somehow, some way, under the most adverse of circumstances, we find a way to figure it out if you let us play the game, if you put us in a position where we can somehow, some way dictate some kind of outcome. But when you strip us of our ability to earn, when we don't even have a job, when we don't even have a paycheck to expect, then you're really, really cutting off their knees, and you're robbing them of the ability to adjust, adapt, and fight accordingly. And I think that's what's so egregious about what's transpiring with the shutdown. If I were to be a politician, if I ever were to run for office, one of the first things that I would do is what you said. They don't get paid, we don't get paid. There are no shutdowns, ever. You understand? Because that means you're asking to be compensated for exercising the dereliction of duty. You don't want to go to work to do your job, but you still want to get paid as if you are doing it while you're costing other people their pay. This is America. This is the richest country in the world, they say, okay? We're supposed to be a mosaic. We're supposed to be prosperous. How in God's name could you sit here as an American citizen, as an elected official, and stomach the fact that over 1 million federal employees, and as of this Friday, our military, who vowed and swore to protect and serve us, they're not going to get paid? How could you sit there with a straight face and think that that's okay? Under any circumstances, if you're an elected official, there shouldn't be an elected official that should show their face in public. They shouldn't want to be on camera. They shouldn't want to walk the streets. They shouldn't want to do anything but be up on Capitol Hill, and don't leave the damn state capitol until you handle your business on the part of the American people. But they won't do it because we're always the last that they think about, no matter what they say. And that's the damn problem.
Stephen A., will you stay with me? And I want to get your perspective on how big a deal this mobbed up sports gaming thing is going to be. So let me take a break, and I'll come back with Stephen A. Smith, because nobody understands, what the real reach of the rot is within professional sports better than the man. So thank you for staying. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. When we come back, you know what we're going to do. We're going to get the truth from the source. All right, we're back with Stephen A. Smith. So what I'm told, now, Stephen A. got into it like he was like, hey, I think that part of this investigation is what we're seeing political ramifications from the Trump administration. Kash Patel came at him, but that's because Stephen A. is so relevant that everybody wants to, he's like a big piece of government cheese right now. But what I want to hear, Stephen A., is how deep do you think the roots are in this? And do you think it spreads to other sports? Because that's what I'm hearing, is that this is not all of it. Well, this is just a little piece of it.
Well, athletes gamble, coaches gamble, some executives gamble, some owners may gamble. It's par for the course. And about 7 years ago, when the Supreme Court struck down a federal mandate prohibiting sports gaming, gaming in the world of sports, everybody's latched onto it, or at least an abundance of folks in sports league have latched onto it. The NBA itself is, as DraftKings and FanDuel as a sponsor. So we understand that. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's a very unfortunate story. I know all three guys. I'm friends with Chauncey Billups. I've known Damon Jones for years. And obviously Terry Rozier is a really good NBA player that's been around for a while, that's made over $150 million in his career. And so, to hear this news, it was kind of shocking. It wasn't shocking that folks were betting, because, you're on the plane rides and stuff like that. You're playing cards all the time, dominoes all the time, stuff like that. That stuff's been going on for ages. But when you hear of something like this, and then you hear about the mob tied to it, and then of course, if you hear anything remotely associated with the integrity of the game being compromised, like, letting somebody know you're going to be coming out of a game and then they bet on it and the mob throw you $100,000 and stuff like that. So those are very, very serious allegations that the NBA is going to take very seriously, dating back to the Tim Donaghy situation with the official back in 2007. There was 6, if I remember correctly, and what he ultimately pled guilty to. And I was very fond of, and I knew the former Commissioner David Stern, God rest his soul, very, very well. He didn't play that nonsense. He took over that. But in this case, it's the FBI. And the league, to some degree, is at the mercy of Kash Patel, the FBI director, and the FBI itself. Now, Kash Patel could act like I'm off my rocker and, you know, all of this other stuff. He talk that nonsense all he wants to. I ain't got time to be getting into it with no FBI director. What I will tell you is that I said what I said. I meant what I meant. I'm not stuttering. I'm not saying in any way that the investigation is not on a legal standing, that it's illegitimate or anything like that. What I said was, for those looking for the president to spare them or to provide a helping hand of assistance, like he's prone to do from time to time for people he likes, don't expect that here. The protests, people not wanting to come to the White House, former star calling them, or no, not a former star, but a present star calling them a bum, you know, this kind of stuff. What LeBron James called him. Called him a bum. You know, stuff like that. The man is not going to forget. You and I doing this, more so you than me, of course. You know I'm not lying. You know how petty he can be. And you know if this inconveniences the league, who he believes have gravitated to a leftist ideology that serves to dog him at every chance. Listen, he doesn't have any problem inconveniencing them whatsoever. And that's exactly what he gave Kash Patel an okay to do, period.
Yep, I think you're spot on. Stephen A. Smith, I love you and I thank you. Thank you for being on the show. My brothers and sisters, we'll be right back. Leland Vittert helps us start off this Monday night strong.
Well, you know, I could never be as strong as Chris Cuomo with a goatee.
I'm trying, and here's why, Leland. Dusty attacked me. One of my friends called me Fu Manchuch, which is
That's
funny.
all it takes?
But I can't grow one, as you know, but so many people are asking me to help raise money for Movember. So I want to try and help them raise a little bit of money until it becomes too embarrassing. I feel like I'm almost there.
You know, can't help you sometimes, my friend, but it was a great show, and we welcome you to the program at 9 p.m.